But it just shows that there's definitely a lot of potential here. Because a lot of people want to come now on chain, this is why it makes sense to integrate also, like from Ripple points of view, more deeply with the XRP Ledger. Because if you look like back 10 years ago or so, people didn't even want, like if you said something with crypto, it was like, oh, that's a scam, that's like for criminals. So you just rather not mention anything crypto related, just said we are a payments company, which they did in the early days. And then we had like the whole SEC thing and lack of clarity whether the United States is going to go after crypto regardless. Now it seems to be like really coming full circle that coming on chain is the way to go. Regulation is incoming with the Clarity Act, and I think just from a whole trajectory, it was very clear that we are going on chain. And I like what, just as a preview, what David said, literally to replace TradFi with DeFi. Like he was saying this so with confidence, we're going to replace them. And I think that confidence you could clearly hear.
Hey and welcome to Krippenreiter TV, our weekly series on Monday, hosted by me, Krippenreiter, and my regular co-host, Vet. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to everyone for the support and for always watching our shows. The channel now grew to 3,000 subscribers, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I always try to imagine what that would look like if you all would like stand in front of me and cheer for the show. Yeah, and Vet and I, we will keep on rocking the shows, and I hope you will continue to follow our journey on YouTube and on X as well. A few days ago, the XRP Community Day happened as well. Probably the most bullish community event this year, with many thousand people listening in on X Spaces. We also heard once again that XRP is Ripple's North Star. Vet, hope you are doing awesome. Is this the North Star Brett was trying to hide from us? Like this one?
I think it was like in the middle, people were like, hey, are you starting a conspiracy here? Mm-hmm. But it was just a Gemini
yes.
AI star, of course. But it was still funny to me. So I saw a lot of people saying, hey, is this like, conspiracy and so on? No, it's just it's Gemini AI. Community Day was awesome. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. How did you feel about the Community Day?
It was massive. I wasn't expecting so many people and projects and just the bullishness. The enthusiasm was just so high. You could literally feel through the screen that everyone is just super bullish on XRP, bullish on XRPL, bullish on the future. Just so bullish on what XRPL will do in the future. And on institutional DeFi, we learned so much about institutional DeFi, all the new amendments, all the new features. We also learned that a lot of projects are actually very much looking forward to batch and permission DEX and permission domain. And also we heard a lot of times that Ripple is really looking forward to integrating XRP into every product that they have. Like in everything, they made it very clear that XRP should be used in every flow within every product that they have, which is, I think, very bullish to know, because I know many people are down right now, I think, because of the sentiment and because of the price. But then it's so irrational in contrast to what is actually happening and in contrast to what we hear and see as well, like tokenization, for example. But because you could say, well, they're just talking, but they're not delivering. But then if you look at the tokenization effort that is going on, and you see that just the amount of tokenization happening on XRPL is just doubling from month to month. We are already above $2 billion tokenized on XRPL. There's just so much happening, and it was very clear that it's only going to be better, and we are moving forward. And I really think, especially with all the products integrated with XRP and XRP integrated in these products and XRPL in the middle, being the neutral settlement layer, I really think we now in this year we have really the chance to accrue liquidity, volume, and interest in XRPL and XRPD asset. What do you think, Vet? Is the future bright, or what do you think?
This was definitely something like, it's always great to have like people at the Community Day making themselves available to the community, showing up and giving their insights. That was like really great. A huge shout out to Ripple and the people behind for organizing. I can only imagine like managing all the groups, all the people. There's a lot of work. But they did fantastic. And we got to know about a lot of awesome things, and specifically what the people who are actually building, how their sentiment is.
Right.
And throughout the whole community, people were just, as I say, like very positive, very grounded. Nobody was like pessimistic or in a bad mood. It was just very, very steady. And it was just showing that, hey, people are here for the long run, right? They are seeing already like the next leg up and the next, like in terms of adoption. And so throughout it was like really, really great, and you could like listen from all sides. I loved, of course, Brett's take with Tony from Thinking Crypto. Of course, the panel we had with Ayo and Jazzy and Mayuka, that was really great. I enjoyed definitely the one with Ashish to hear from Evernorth because, you know, keeping that, you know, my eyes on Evernorth, because I feel like that's definitely something we have to pay attention to. They do great jobs. But just in general, it was a fantastic community. I know not everything was like, you know, too interesting for everyone, but that's like how it goes. You know, you have sessions that are more interesting to some people than others, but the idea is that there will be at least something that interests you. And I'm pretty sure there was at least one session that anyone could say, hey, that's my session. I love that one. And yeah,
a lot of education, a lot of with Brad and Monica, for example, a lot of Ripple talk, but also like with Mayuka, for example, and Jazzy and Ayu, we had a lot of tech talk as well. And in the end, also, we will talk about it later, but David Schwartz obviously also had his speech and his interview and talk, which was just on another level. But we will talk about it later. Yeah, not only about the community day, but also the tech side, I think was really important to hear from all these projects that the tech that XRPL offers, even without smart contracts, or maybe if smart contracts are missing, we now have the possibility to even deliver more. Like with Flair was talking about it being the computational layer, and then you have the settlement and tokenization layer on XRPL. And then obviously we also have Squid Router and the EVM sidechain being the computational layer if you want to be on this side of the cryptosphere. And this is new. And with this, for example, lending protocol, I think is one of the biggest, so single asset vaults, the lending protocol, permissioned domains, permissioned DEX, and credentials, I think are the 5 tools that we will be able to use in the future for institutional demand that will really drive the XRPL forward.
Yeah, and I loved, in addition to this, I'd love to hear from Ayu about the Zero Knowledge Proof, ZKP initiatives, how privacy leads to security, how important it is to have also some privacy on a public blockchain for businesses. So that they have business privacy, as well as, of course, for scalability parts, interoperability. Like we talked a little bit about interoperability, even something related to the payment channels and ILP. I think that's interesting. For me personally, it's still a bit abstract. Like I was asking him about this. The answer was of course great, like from his point of view, but there's like a lot of depth to it, which I definitely would love to dig, of course, in the future more. But it just shows that there's definitely a lot of potential here, and because a lot of people want to come now on chain. This is why it makes sense to integrate also, like from Ripple points of view, more deeply with the XRP Ledger. Because if you look like back 10 years ago or so, people didn't even want, like if you said something with crypto, it was like, oh, that's a scam, that's like for criminals. So you just rather not mention anything crypto related, just said we are a payments company, which they did, in the early days. And then we had like the whole SEC thing and lack of, clarity whether the United States is going to go after crypto regardless. Now it seems to be like really coming full circle that, coming on chain is the way to go. Regulation is incoming with the Clarity Act. And so I think just from a whole trajectory, it was very clear that we are going on chain. And I like what, just as a preview, what David said, literally to replace TradFi with DeFi. Like he was saying this so with confidence, we're going to replace them. And I think that confidence you could clearly hear.
And I think this is also the right way forward, but as well, you have to start somewhere. And this is where Soil, for example, comes in, because Soil is a They explained themselves as hybrid because they're very much focused and rooted in TradFi. But obviously, like every company that offers something for the XRPL and for the XRP community, they want to offer something that is on chain, which they do if the tokenized assets already exist on XRPL or the real world assets. If they are tokenized, they can use it. But for most companies right now, because the backend is still too complex and cannot be built on chain right now, because, for example, the single asset vault is not there yet, and lending protocol is not there yet, you're still bound to using the off-chain components that you need to offer something. But you can still combine it. That's the hybrid part where the XRP Ledger comes in. You can still, like, for example, pay RLUSD into a pool. In this case, it's an XRPL account, which will earn you yield, which the source will come from off-chain sources, just like private credit, for example. Private credit basically doesn't exist yet on XRPL. It's just not tokenized in any form, so you have to do it off-chain. So this is where Soil comes in, for example, and they went live. So for anyone who's interested in Soil, if you are interested in learning more about it, I also interviewed Nick Motz from Soil. He's the CIO. And I talked about everything, like where's the yield come from, how's the flow of RLUSD, and how's the corporate structure, how's the licensing working and everything. So if you want to learn more, I will link it here. And you can just learn about everything you need to know and get started if you want. If not, all fine. Like with all projects that exist, it's always just an option and an offer. You have to decide for yourself. You have to research independently as well. And this is where you could go. If you go to my website, you can look at the FAQ. I will work on an update on the FAQ just for people to know. All the questions I had about Soil, I will put there as well, but I have to still optimize them a little bit because it's just too deep in general. Because I wanted to do my due diligence, but I also wanted to learn about, from many point of views, basically. Yes. I wanted to learn how it goes from the user perspective, but I also wanted to learn about the legal side and the technical side. Yeah. And now I have to compress it somehow to make it readable, basically. Sure. And this is what I will do, an update on my page. And if you are interested, you can check it out. I will link it in the description, and everywhere you will find it. But on this, I would really like to know, what do you think about these hybrid seed DeFi approaches like Soil and Doppler Finance and so on?
They definitely fit or fill niche right now that we have, like a niche that we have. The niche is really that there is lack of DeFi products on the XRP Ledger in general. And because we don't have things like smart contracts, it's really hard to create a product on chain. So they necessarily have to be off-chain, right, or somewhere else. And this is what these projects are really basically fulfilling, right? They provide you an infrastructure to get to them through the XRP Ledger. You deposit with them, and then they generate yield for you off-chain with other products. It makes sense because there's just no other way on the XRP Ledger to do it, really. That's the thing. And I think because there are a lot of actors and projects in the space, it makes a lot of sense for the community as a whole to come together and look at like more deeply into some of the projects initially. So you have at least a few projects where you can say people vetted them, so that aside from the general risk that all of these have, general, there is no like other risk involved in terms of, maybe it's a shady team or something like this. It's just like, hey, that's a yield product, and if the yield product works, you get it, and if not, then that's the risk. Yeah.
Right. For me personally, it's always interesting and important to learn about these projects and how they are moving forward. Like, let's say Sol, for example, has a lot of off-chain components right now with their private credit, for example. But what I wanted to know about them is also, how's their view in the future? What are they going to do? And then I learned about the lending protocol. And we already know from Ethernorth that they want to leverage the lending protocol. But Soil will do as well. So you see where these like TradFi projects and institutions are going. They need some kind of off-chain component because like the collateral, for example, the liquidation, it's not possible on XRPL. Yeah. But the settlement and the management of funds should be on-chain. And this is where these projects will move to in the future with the help of the lending protocol and the single asset vault. If it goes live this year, we will see. I hope it will go live, but because they are already prepared, they have a demo ready, and I think this is the way forward. There was another news, which was the Binance listing of RLUSD, and it started with Ethereum, but now it's also actually listed on XRPL. which is awesome because now you can also, at least in theory, you can also list other tokenized assets IOUs on Binance if you have the demand and the, well, obviously also the money. What do you think that is this? It's important, I would say, right?
It's definitely important. It just shows that integrating like issued assets on exchanges is great. What I would love to see just in general is that these exchanges tap into the DEX for people to trade these tokens if there is enough liquidity. So if a token has enough liquidity on the DEX, it should be available for people to trade via the centralized exchange. So the centralized exchange becomes a front end to the DEX. That would be personally my favorite outcome. And I think we can see this with Coinbase and Solana. They had like this partnership, which I personally think it's an opportunity for us. I know that Gemini is very close with Ripple and the XRP ecosystem. You know, if you have Gemini doing something like this, that would be such a huge thing. It would be so amazing. But here we have like RLUSD is now available for deposits on Binance, the XRPL version, which is great. I know a lot of people said, hey, I have RLUSD on XRPL. I don't want to swap around and so on. I have treasury and management. So how can I do it? Now you have Binance. Right. I would love to see more exchanges, of course. Some people were mentioning Bitstamp.
Bitstamp. Oh my God, Bitstamp. Yeah,
Bitstamp. That's the OG actually.
Yeah.
Right? They should have been the first.
Right. it's so unfortunate, really. So weird.
It's always, it never goes how you would think, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you would actually think that Bitstamp would be the first. They already have the infrastructure. They know how to tokenize on XRPL.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely don't understand why. Yeah. But maybe that's another topic.
And plus, because they are now with Robinhood, I wonder if there's even like more, maybe it's just maybe less easier because now you have to ask Robinhood basically if they would want to do that.
Which is sad. I hope that's not the case, but it's probably the case. I could see this being the reason, which would be sad. Another news that came out, a huge announcement in my opinion, about in a big issuer who is in the UK, which is called Aviva. There's Aviva PLC, and then there's Aviva Investors. And then Aviva Investors are the ones managing the funds of Aviva PLC. And Ripple partnered with Aviva Investors to put and tokenize assets on the XRPL. In this case, they have the intention to tokenize traditional fund structures, which is gigantic, I think, because we're talking about a lot of money, like tons of billions of dollars. Yeah. And it will all be on the XRP Ledger. But they will do it this year, actually, also, which I think is cool to hear, because most of the time when these announcements come out, it's always like, yeah, we will do it, but we don't know when. Maybe it's next year. We will see. And then they never do it. But this time they committed on this year and on XRPL, which is exactly what we want to see.
It's really actually a big deal. I was like not paying too much, but apparently it's really a big deal. And it's a major effort to get them like sort of to crypto in general first, because they're very traditional. Yeah. But then also the XRP Ledger, and that's great.
Yeah, it's an insurer. It's a big insurer, maybe even the biggest in the UK. I'm not 100% sure, but they are really big. They have 20 million customers and 407 billion under management in assets, which is just gigantic. Even if just 1% gets tokenized, that's already billions, right?
But by the way, this is where it very easily shows you the top-down approach that, for example, David always says, right? How many crypto users do you know, right? Or even like on the XRP Ledger, maybe a couple thousand, tens of thousands, let's say 100,000, maybe a million. Here's just one project, so business, and they have 20 million customers. Right. This is like the top-down approach is the best leverage, because if you get like these big institutions to come on chain, their users become the chain users, and then you immediately have like a lot more users. And that's just a very clear way, that the top-down approach is for the scaling part the best. Instead of picking up like random people one by one individually, you need to get them through the institution because that's where the customer is.
Yeah, definitely. And you have to also keep in mind, like in this case, it's an insurer, but they also do wealth management and retirement management. So what we saw with Soil, for example, they do as well. You invest money into these wealth management machines and retirement machines, and they talk about this here. You can, for example, invest as a customer lump sum, so one payment one big payment into their management machine. And then they manage and care about your investment and hopefully, try to make your retirement work financially speaking. So they have a lot of use cases next to just tokenizing and next to just insuring cars, for example. So there's like protecting customers against risks, helping customers save for their future, and helping customers manage their retirement funds, which is crazy to think about, that Ripple was able to partner with such a gigantic insurer that is so massive in the UK.
Yeah.
So much going on. This would already like 3x the current issuance on XRPL. Just as one issuer, right?
I mean, like Monica said, institutional adoption at scale.
Right.
That's really scaling.
And it will happen this year, which is also very bullish because, again, the price is down. But if you hear from these partners and these businesses...
But the fundamentals improving.
The fundamentals are always improving. On the technical side, on the tokenization effort side, on business sides, and also integration. Ripple finally going on the DEX. These kinds of things are really making a difference. I think this is where the future is. Now we're talking about David Schwartz, which was just an amazing interview in general. Crypto did an amazing job. I expected nothing less.
Problems this time.
No problems this time. What I thought was really emotional was David Schwartz right at the start, from the introduction, where Crypto she asked him about the community and what he thinks is important, and he was
out of words. He said, I was out of words.
He wasn't even able to articulate how much of importance the community is for him, which is just so.
By the way, a lot of people are quoting the North Star quote from Brad Garlinghouse. Well, people are not quoting from Brad. Mm-hmm. He said, just like it was like one-to-one. He said, "I freaking love this community," and so yeah, he's also a huge fan. It's very clear they really, really love the community.
It's the biggest asset,
deeply. Yeah.
And you wrote this one post where you basically summarized everything that was happening in this interview, except one important fact. I wrote
the game.
The game. I
missed that one actually.
Yeah,
what was that example of again?
It was weird. I wasn't expecting him to play any games, but then he was saying,
Then he was saying, because of the NFT example, right?
The idea was he's playing Path of Exile 1, and then let's say he's level 50 or something, has a sword or something like a chest plate, whatever. He has items, and in a tokenized form. For example, you could argue that you should be able to take these items and take them over to Path of Exile version 2. And then you can start again from the start, but you have already some items from the past. You took them over. Like, for example, the sword you loved the most, or let's say some skin that you bought in the early version, and then you could take it over because this is just your identity in this game, or maybe some skills, some points. You could tokenize this all and take it over to the next game, which he then said is still complicated, but a good activity in a series. So if it works, it will be great, but obviously it's very complicated and hard to do. If it wouldn't be the case, someone would have already done it. So
right.
But that explained to us just what happened with David Schwartz in this interview.
Yeah, this is just basically the things that I was like literally just thinking, okay, what did stick with me after? And I just put exactly what stick with me. His confidence about DeFi will replace TradFi was like so strong. He mentioned it at least twice. I was like, okay, like it's really clear for him that's going to happen. And then another one was super surprised that he would chat with Vitalik on the path of smart contracts that have been like going through since then, and also the work done on Codius. Like sort of have that as a conversation. Huge surprise. He made again that comparison with what if there's like sort of, you can imagine a world where Vitalik is got his visa and it worked for Ripple and would be now at Ripple. Like what would the world be now? Right. So he made that. Then the lending protocol is really ahead, when you mentioned this, because he was criticizing the lack of the over collateralization in crypto native that's not great. He said that this is not how TradFi works.
Right. Exactly.
We agreed with that. Him like many like in other shows. The compliance is native, agentic payments really came up. Like when Ayo mentioned this like last year in this space, I was like, okay, interesting. But now it's like really coming more and more.
Right.
And he mentioned that as well about the agentic payments, so that they need sort of a source, like a means to pay each other on the internet. And how would you do this? Because they cannot have credit cards or use like these things. You know, they would use crypto and crypto rails. And by the way, there was a project in the community day as well, the T54, which partnered with Ripple. And they made very clear that actually the lack of smart contracts on the XRP Ledger is beneficial because it minimizes the risk what can go wrong for them. Like when you have like these agentic AI, you're not 100% sure what's going to happen. But if you can at least say, hey, the scope is limited, you cannot mess it up, you know, so you have, it becomes low risk.
True.
Yeah, the internet browser moment is missing in crypto. He said, which I agree. You know, like, indeed, like crypto
really
feels feels like it, right?
And we talked about it about wallets, for example. You have all these wallets, but not every wallet is connected to every service, and you have you have to keep in mind: can I use this wallet for this website, or do I have to use Wallet Connect, or do I have to like find ways to move funds from one wallet to another, but then I have to think about the private keys and how to manage them. It's just so complicated, and it's not abstracted enough. It gets better over time. For example, Scriptrouter doing a ton of work just to abstract the complexity of liquidity aggregation across chains, but it's still super, super complicated and horrible in an experience, in a way that you still have to, like, you go to this website and you just have to think about, okay, what is my source? Is my source now a chain? Which chain? On which chain am I? On which chain is my RLUSD, for example? Why do I have to care about this?
It's still too technical. It really is way too technical still. So when he said it makes total sense, and plus, I feel like really this is the ILP moment, maybe.
Right.
You know, like this is where you completely abstract it away, right? And you don't really care like where, like the path taken behind the scenes. In such a world, you have different products that will be interesting than in the world that we are in right now, or the era that we are in right now. Right. In the current era, it's very chain centric. It's I'm on XRPL, I'm on Ethereum, so very chain centric, and that could definitely change. So let's see with the internet browser more.
Right. I think in the future, if everything is multi-chain connected, and you hopefully maybe. It depends if we will do everything with agentic payments in the future, or if we will still do something on our own. But if it's agentic, I think everything should be abstracted for these agents to do their job without any issues. But also, it should also be abstracted for us retailers that are using finance and funds in general. It should feel like with bank accounts that we have today.
Yes.
But with the advantage of owning your keys, owning your funds, still being secure, still being sure that your funds moving from one place to another without any issues with privacy, for example. I don't want anyone to know how much money I own and where I own it and how I manage it. So this should all be abstracted, and privacy should guard me in this sense. And I think this is still missing, like this layer on top, something that really abstracts away the whole world below, which is blockchain and cross-chain and bridging. And like with TCP/IP, for example, you have all these layers, and you always only see like the first layer, like the cables, for example, and then you see the websites, sort of the top layers. It's very rare that you have to go in between to find out about your DNS server, or you have to find out about how your transport protocol is working. This is not how it should be, but it still feels like this in crypto, and I think this has to go away.
The hourglass architecture, where you have like in the middle, you know, it's on the side
exactly
of TCP/IP. Of course, you mentioned the families and time that he had, family time and hobbies. The last one is interesting because that's like a downside and an upside that we oftentimes discuss. So you mentioned that the XRP has shared on-chain primitives that anyone can use. They are basically shared public goods. No one owns them. It's very democratic because it's on protocol level, so there is no owner. And because there is no owner, there's no tax collector for that. Unlike with smart contract chains, where or pure smart contract chains, is like either you build your own smart contract, okay, or you use it from someone else and you need to pay them tax. So either you build your own or you pay someone else. You don't have the option of I use something that all of us have, like it belongs to us. Like on the XRP Ledger, the AMM, no one owns the AMM, right? It's like it belongs to the protocol that makes it democratic, public. There is no one who can put like protocol level incentives for themselves. No, it just belongs to everybody. Of course, that has also a downside. That's the interesting thing. It's like it's because we talked about this because it is a shared thing. You cannot own it, and because you cannot own it, you can actually not tax someone. So the interesting thing what David said is he highlighted one side, but actually the other side is not too bad as well. You know, like the thing is with that you can tax someone because you build it is actually a good incentive for builders. Right. But if you have something that you cannot tax someone as a builder, there is no incentive for you to build on because you cannot make a living out of it. You know, so you just don't. It's just interesting that you have like it's a coin and you can look at both sides, of course, and you pick your downsides. Like if you whatever you like.
Like with all things, being too radical on one side or the other is basically not the way forward.
Yeah.
If you are only using primitives, you are not able to do the whole spectrum of what you should do. Even if the spectrum is limited, you are still not able to do it because just a little bit is missing, which is why you need some kind of smart contracts. And then on the other hand, on Ethereum, for example, where everything is smart contract based, it's also not good because it's not optimized. It's not price efficient. It's just bloated. So as always, probably somewhere in the middle is the good way, the path forward. And we should use as minimal programmability as possible to keep the scope as limited as possible, but still allow developers to build something.
Yes.
Without the downsides,
Exactly. So, this upside that David was talking about has the downside that I was just mentioning. If we can minimize that downside with a little bit programmability, the least amount that we can, then I think we can maximize more. We can maximize the benefit a lot more. Exactly. Instead of just keeping it no programmability at all, because that's the thing. And I know because when we talk about programmability, people say. Because the word smart contract is very emotional in that case. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, it's like literally what are you actually meaning with when you say that? So when I say smart contract, I mean XLS 101 in that case for XRPL.
For me as well.
Someone else may mean like Ethereum smart contract. Someone else means maybe Solana. But I mean the one for us. That scope, we just call it that way. It's not the same. By the way, it's not the same as a Solana or Ethereum. It's just a bad word term.
We have to rename it, rebrand it.
The thing is, I think if we would have renamed it, we would at least not have gotten a good conversation because we had like a very heated debate, and I think that was because of the word, because people like read smart contract and that ringed alarm bells, right? Not knowing what it really is behind it and what is the scope of it, what is the impact of it on the ledger potentially, and things like that. There was an emotional one, I would say, with the wording, and I think we should not change it just because of the sake, because it's just cosmetics. So we just should keep it and rather address like what people are really actually concerned of. We talked about the incentives part. We talked about ledger bloat,
security,
node costs, security. These are the things that are interesting to discuss. So if the word smart contract was like sort of an intro into that, I'm happy because at the end of the day we want to have the conversation.
And when we talk about smart contracts, and as we said, we also have to talk about security. And with security also there are also issues. Even on XRPL, without smart contracts, we still have some form of scams going on. There are 2 scams currently going on, which I want the community, the listener, to know about. The first one that explained to me, how is it possible that XRP can be issued? This shouldn't be possible, right? What's going on there?
Shouldn't be actually possible, but should be possible. It's like sort of this middle ground. So first, XRP is the native asset on the XRP Ledger. Because it's a native asset, it's a privileged asset in that case because it has no issuer. And it's the most efficient way to send money on the XRPL because you don't do trust line checks actually on the XRP Ledger core. Anyone can hold XRP. Fantastic. So by having that is, or what you can see here, what I was posting is that if you want to issue an asset that is called XRP, capital letters XRP, okay, you can't. If you, I believe that's the case, if you want to do more than 3 letters as a ticker or currency code, you need to do it in hex. Okay, so you need to do it in a hex code. And when you do it in this hex code, right, you can have like longer names, like for example, Krippen or Ripple or something like that. And someone smart thought, hey, what if I do it like, hey, I use a hex code, and that hex code translate into XRP, which I cannot use as a capital letter.
Yeah.
And this is what they were able to do. So again, if you try to issue an asset, capital letters XRP, it doesn't work. But if you do it as a hex form that translate into XRP, it does work. So you sort of trick it that way.
But it's not the real XRP, right? This is basically a scam because it's an issued token. XRP can never be an issued token because it's created from the protocol. It's native. It has no counterparty. This one has a counterparty. There is an issuer account behind it, and this is an issued token, so not the real XRP. So nothing, no inflation. It's just someone scamming the community right now with this token name.
Yeah, but when you have if someone says, "Hey, please set the trust line to send you XRP," you know it's a scam already because you don't need to set a trust line to receive XRP.
Right.
Anyone can hold it without doing any of this, and again, but I think this is like a job for front ends. This is going to be very important for the next one that you're going to show. I think it's a job for the front ends. Zaman is doing it already. When they see this, they already unlabel it and they label it not XRP, they call it fake XRP. So to make it very clear for people, hey, this is not XRP, this is fake XRP.
Very important.
And that's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the second scam that is going on right now is a scam around NFT and NFT, selling NFT, creating an offer and trying to sell an NFT to you. And by selling the NFT to you, they're actually rug pulling whatever you have in your account right now. So they tried to do it with me as well. They tried to create an offer and they offered me an NFT. And this NFT would actually rug pull me about 12,799 ever tokens that I have if I would accept it. So on this, never accept random NFT offers that come into your account. Double and triple check everything. And if we go onto this NFT, we will see what is actually going on. The transaction that I saw on my Zaman wallet was that an NFT token create offer was put out from this account to my account. So what this means, he wants to sell me an NFT, and we will see in a minute what this NFT is. He will sell an NFT to me. If I accept it, I would have to pay the amount that he put in this create offer. So what he wanted, he wants to rug pull me by exploiting me, by taking away my funds. Could be XRP, in this case it's Ever tokens. He does it in a way by faking a free reward voucher or something, and by doing so they try to trick you into accepting this offer. And in the moment you accept this offer, you will buy this NFT selling your tokens. So if I click on this NFT, you will see it's just some random, they call it Ever reward voucher. There is no Ever reward voucher. It's a scam. Don't accept these scams. They will rug pull you.
Yeah. And it's a very typical scenario of that the front ends are really in charge here to make it very clear, because essentially someone is saying, hey, I'm selling you this NFT for 12,000 Evers or XRP, whatever. I'm selling this. If you say, yes, I accept it, from the XRP Ledger point of view, you accepted just a very valid sell offer, right? Someone said, hey, do you want this? You said yes. So from an XRP Ledger point of view, everything went normal. But why people are being sort of tricked in that case is like they accept things, not knowing what the consequences of that is, essentially. And to make this very clear during the signing process, when you have a wallet or a platform, marketplace, this is where it's important to say, hey, if you accept it, and I know you said you want to do this right now, you will pay 12,000 evers or 1,000 XRP. Are you still okay with it? And then you can say yes or no. And if you still say yes, then then you agreed with. But to make this very clear for people that hey, you should not do this. This is a front end topic. I know a lot of people want to have, because when you have these things, just in general, being scammed is not fun. Losing funds is absolutely not fun. What people typically then try to do is then the protocol has to protect me or has to sort of prevent this from happening. But what happened is a very valid thing, just from a
the protocol doesn't censor anything. It's not biased. It's neutral. It just does. It's neutral. It has some rules, and the rules are these transactions. And if you accept whatever you are getting right now, then it's your fault in the sense that you accepted this transaction. You accepted the sell offer.
Exactly. And plus, this very same valid sell offer, right, works every day hundreds of times.
Right.
When people are buying normal NFTs. If I want to sell you an NFT, you said accept it. It worked just the same way that this worked, right? So this is why it's difficult to prevent something like this, because other people using it for valid use, like normal use. In that case, it's just unfortunate because
you mint, right, and then you sell for, let's say, 0 XRP or 0.00001 XRP. So basically for free. But
that would be a free mint.
This is how it basically usually works if you do free mints. But in this case, they are trying to extract. They are trying to exploit you, trick you into actually paying a high amount of XRP or any token that you own. And in this, it's not smart contracts. It's just the token offer that you accept in this sense. If you do it, just when someone sends you this offer, doesn't mean you are rug pulled. The only way to get rug pulled is to accept random offers that you get that you are willing to accept. This is the only way.
Exactly. It's just when people send you like small amounts of XRP with a memo, right? They say, hey, do you want to have like whatever, an airdrop, whatever? Just don't do anything. Just chill.
Don't click on the link. Don't copy the addresses or something and send money to them. Or just ignore. And many actually, when we say front end, we mean websites and wallets. And what they actually do is they most of the time also hide these scammy transactions and scammy issuers and scammy token offerings and so on. So they try to protect you already.
Exactly. And with the case of NFTs, I like what Zaman did. They made basically the amount what you would pay very large.
Right.
So they said they made a really huge say, hey, if you accept this, you very big, you're going to spend 1,000 XRP. Okay, like here, do you see this big number? Are you okay? And if you still accept it, then
it's up on you, right? You accept being scammed, right?
It's just hard because blockchain is irreversible, and be your own bank, right? Be your own bank means, unfortunately, also that.
But being your own bank also means that you have the free will to also decline everything incoming. This is also something that XRPL offers you. And for this, I will sign in on Bithomp, because we can disallow certain transactions to happening to our account. So I will connect my wallet. And there are many possibilities. Like many people, for example, use Zaman. We can also use Ledger, Gem Wallet. If you use Bifrost Wallet or Joey Wallet, you will need to use the Wallet Connect function. Even Trezor and pretty new Xyra as well. So many ways to do it. I will use Zaman right now. So we will log in.
By the way, we are here on Bithomp, very OG Explorer. So check them out.
Now that I've logged in, the next step is to go on services and then account settings. These are things you can do to your account to change the way your account behaves on the XRPL. And there are 4 settings that you should look at. 4 settings that you can configure if you want to make it impossible for someone else, for example, to send you an NFT. Obviously, anything around NFTs will not work with your account anymore. This is very important. The moment we disable this, it will not be possible for you to use XRP Cafe, for example, anymore. Because it's just, we disabled it for your account. But we can also disable incoming trust lines, which I did already. What this means is I disabled someone else from issuing a trust line onto my account. And I do this, I don't want this because I will never issue a token on my Krippenreiter account. Or if I do, I would need to enable it again. But as long as I am not willing to issue an IOU token or something, it makes no sense for anyone else to create a trust line to my account. So this is why I disabled it. I will also disable in the future payment channels and checks because that's just nothing I use. If I want to use it, I can just enable it again or allow it again. But in this sense, because we're talking about this NFT scam, we can actually disable incoming NFT offers. And this will disable these scams from happening. They will not be able to send you an offer anymore, but a legitimate offer will also not work anymore. So this is the problem. As Bithomp says, if enabled, other accounts cannot create NFT offers with this account as the destination.
Yeah.
In this sense,
so what would not work if you would do this is that you cannot mint an NFT, let's say on XRP Cafe, because they cannot send you an offer to accept the NFT for minting. And you can, of course, not transfer NFTs also to your account or receive them.
Okay, now that I've accepted and signed the transaction, the incoming NFT offers setting on my account is also disallowed. So this one scammer trying to scam me will never be able to do it again, because this offer, they will not be able to send me any new offer. If I want to interact with any NFTs again, I will have to allow it again. The same way I disallowed the setting, I will also have to allow it again. So this is something you can do, you don't have to do it. It's just something you probably should do if you already know you don't want to interact with NFTs, you don't want to interact with trust lines, payment channels, and checks. In general, this may be something you should think about. For example, for your cold wallet. Like if you only hold XRP, for example, and you don't plan on doing anything with it, why not disable NFT offers, payment channels, checks, and incoming trust lines? Because whatever is coming your way on your cold wallet probably is not something legitimate that you actually want to accept. So in this case, you would just minimize the risk to zero by disallowing everything.
The incoming XRP one, I think also be careful. So let's say if you want to send XRP from your exchange to your account, I think that would be...
It's a weird one also. Because as Bithomp says, if enabled, this means the account does not accept XRP anymore. Note, this setting is not enforced by the protocol, which is weird. So XRP can still be sent to the account. So it's just like, I would like to never accept XRP, but because it's neutral, XRP has no issuer. You can, on XRPL, you cannot stop anyone from sending you XRP, except you do the...
it was the deposit auth one that you should be careful.
Yeah, if you do deposit auth, it will disallow any incoming transaction, payment transaction to your...
Yeah.
So there will be no way for anyone to send you XRP anymore.
It's what the actual incoming XRP disallow should be.
Right.
Because this one is just an information flag, I believe. Right.
Yeah, it's information. Yeah. It's just, I would not like to get XRP, but if you still send me XRP, I can't do anything against it. Yeah. So you can. So the deposit auth is the actual is the actual protection if you don't want to have this. And some accounts have it, right? From businesses, they don't want to have spam from people. But for the regular retailers, this is probably something you should be very careful about. The things you can perfectly allow and disallow all the time whenever you want is like incoming checks, incoming payment channels, trust lines, and NFT offers. These 4 are the ones you should check for yourself if this is something you want to disable or not.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, we have some amendments going on. And one amendment that went live is the token escrow. And it actually went live yesterday. So that with token escrow, are we now able to actually tokenize and lock up tokenized assets on XRPL? Because in the past, it was only XRP, right?
It's a huge one because that's been so long in the development by Dennis. Shout out to Dennis for developing this. And now it's active. So you can now escrow issued assets on the XRP Ledger, actually. And that's a huge thing. Now, in practice, what is the actual landscape? A lot of accounts are blackholed because they want to prevent or show that they don't have the ability to mint more tokens. So they blackhole. But when you blackhole, you are doing something that is very important for token escrow. Token escrow requires the issuer to do a trust line lock, allow to trust line lock, it means. And that needs an issuer to allow it. If the issuer is not able, so when allowing it means to sign a transaction. If you black hole, you cannot sign a transaction. Thus, you cannot allow it, and therefore you can actually not use token escrow because the issuer cannot allow it. And there is a lot of people who have been black holed. They can essentially not use it.
Right.
That's a big bummer for this one.
Liquidity pool tokens as well for AMM.
Exactly, because who is the issuer? Who can sign?
The pseudo account.
The pseudo account can't sign, right?
Yeah. So it's a great feature with a lot of consideration still in the works and a lot of future potential.
Future potential. I hope maybe we can look into follow-up amendments to see how we can work this out, because people will keep like creating accounts and black hole them. My opinion, it should be that. That should be it, but that's on me. I should have been more proactive in maybe in this. Is like anyone who owns a token, ownership asset, should escrow it regardless what the issuer says. So you should not get approval from the issuer to escrow your own tokens, because all you do with an escrow is you lock it up from your own self. So I say I want to prevent myself from spending it. And if I say I want to prevent myself from spending it, I should not ask an issuer to do that.
That's true.
Or whether I can. Maybe we can work this out. Maybe we can do something like that. MPTs is of course an alternative for this, but MPTs needs also follow-up amendments to be very useful.
True.
Yeah,
we will see. I mean, there are other upcoming amendments and features as well. I think there's a lot going on. Token escrow is just one out of many amendments. I'm also looking forward to payment channels, actually, because this is also something you can only do with XRP right now, which also should be able with tokens. And I know Dennis has something going on with payment channels, but it's still in the works.
One thing I want to say, because I think that fits very well to the website that you were showing with the amendments, is please, like honestly, please get active with the amendments.
Right.
So if you really care about, let's say, I want to use token escrow, or I'm interested in token escrow, or in any future amendment, actually, right? Let's say smart contracts or smart escrow, lending protocols now there, but privacy, confidential transfer, firewall. I mean, you mentioned there's a bunch of things. Get active in the conversation, because this is where changes can still be made.
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, during development, contribute. Hey, this is my use case. Is this possible? And they say, no, it's actually not possible. Then you can work it out. You don't need to be a developer, really.
Right.
Just lay out your use case.
Right. Discussions, ideas, proposals. It's about talking through the technicalities, but also about the general idea. So you don't have to talk about the really deep technical topics. If you think that already something in the whole design is not working out for you, you should really go into these discussions and at least ask a question. Find out if what you think is wrong, is going wrong, should be made different. So
exactly. And don't be intimidated, right? They might be very technical, but there's no stupid questions. Just ask right away, like, hey, you guys are talking about this. I'm interested in this amendment. Can you do this? I have a black hold account.
Right.
And this is my project. Can I use it? Would this be possible? Yes or no? And if people say no, then you can say, hey, okay, if this not works out, a lot of people will have a problem with it. And then you can work it out, because this is where changes can be made. Once an amendment is up for voting, it's freezed. It's freezed and changed.
Right.
That's too late, because you need a follow-up amendment on the amendment to make any changes. So get active.
Yes.
Get very active, because this is where changes can be made. And I see this oftentimes, and even myself, I have to say, is you start noticing amendments first when they really come to voting or very close to voting, and then you say, I actually would have loved to make this and that change.
Sure.
But it's too late. You need to come earlier. This is why the discussion is literally there.
Here on GitHub, XRPL standards, I will put the link also in the comments, so you can just look it up and get active. And here you have all these discussions, and some of them are just ideas. Ideas are even more kind of a draft than an actual draft. And then you have like this one, for example, very new from Richard. It's very deeply thought through already. Has all the structure going on. You already know what's going on, the specification, motivation. In the abstract, you already know what's it's all about. And if you read through this, you could also possibly use AI for this, just to get an idea of what's going on, and then ask the AI maybe about questions that you have. And if the AI isn't able to perfectly answer you these questions, or you think it should be different than the AI, for example, is telling you how it should work, then you can go down and you can write comments, like here, for example. In this case, he just renamed the proposal and title. But for example, in this case, you read that for the security consideration, you say, that's not how it should be. Then you go down to the comments and write your improvement that you think how it should be, or you ask a question and find answers on why the proposal was meant or built the way it is.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to, of course, create your own proposals, but just chime into it like Vito was doing. Right. Just you can chime in and say, "Hey, I have read this." Comment, and then get your answer whether that amendment is going to do it for you or no.
Perfect. I mean, this is great. I mean, so much going on, so many features. We already talked about the lending side and the institutional DeFi side. All these features. That to wrap this session up this time. Is there one thing you are really looking forward to where you say, if this gets enacted, doesn't have to be a feature, but if this works out this year, or if it gets enacted, this will change everything and will maybe even improve XRP in a sense that it will be used even more on XRPL? Just one big thing. What would you say?
That's a difficult one. I think because all of these features that they by themselves do nothing. You need always like bootstrapping or people like using them to make really use like. So I would think of which features have, if they are properly used, have a lot of leverage, like a lever, like they can really lift. I think. Lending protocol is definitely one that has like if properly used, it's always like if properly used has a good leverage, and then smart contract, of course. I would say smart contracts, of course, is a big one. From the upcoming permission DEX. I mean that's an obvious one. I see this already as sort of activated. This one has also if properly used has a huge. Leverage. So we have like three things that are from sides. From a DeFi point of view, I would say lending protocol. From compliance point of view, permission DEX is probably, because the permission domain can also be applied to let's say
single asset vaults,
vaults or even XLS. Forgot is it 85? I don't know. 87 is like the one with the token deposit, so you can actually do also token with permission domain. That's also really great. But for the DEX itself, to make the DEX compliance, permission DEX is really strong. So having like this feature, I think from all of them, just from a complexity point of view, it's probably permission DEX. But because permission DEX is from a complexity point of view, very, very small, but has a lot of leverage, the most amount of leverage. If you look at smart contracts, that's way more complex, so you need to see like cost benefit, I guess. From a cost benefit, permission DEX is probably the cheapest that gets us the most.
Yeah, I think batch as well. We already know batch will enable delivery versus payment, which is something the institutions want and need. Ripple wants this as well. They have highlighted this as well. We already know with permission DEX and permission domains and credentials, like credentials and permission domains are already live. As soon as permission DEX goes live, we will probably see Ripple payments go on chain using the XRPL DEX in a permission DEX, which is my personal highlight, because this will enable millions, hopefully billions of new volume coming to the chain and using their order books, and this will really change maybe even the perspective on XRPL a little bit, because there's not much going on right now, because it's not perfectly built right now for the institutions. But as soon as permission DEX goes live, there's everything that anyone needs to trade on the XRPL in a permission compliant setting.
Yeah, for the order book, right?
For the order book.
But the thing is, we have amazing things that give us like a lot of leverage, as I said, like they can lift us a lot high up. But we also have plenty of things that we can work on to make it even better. Like I was mentioning, like I think the programmability part will be a very crucial one for us to iterate. Because if you look right now, the AMM, just as it is right now, is not the most perfect, to say it friendly. Like I think the AMM, we can improve in the AMM a lot. There's a lot of things that we can improve on the AMM that we should improve to make it better. The lending protocol, in my opinion, will probably also have like things where we already have to think about how can we improve. I think programmability will help us there. So great things that coming that gives us a lot of power, but that doesn't mean that we will have nothing to work on in the future. Because there is definitely
there are iterations. There will be new versions. We will find out that something is missing or something should be iterated on.
It's an iterative process.
Right. As it should be. I think that it's also important, and this is something which happens a lot on XRPL, the most basic features, as soon as they get enacted, they are mostly always foundational. And the idea is always, okay, let's set the foundation and see what's missing, what's really needed. Because we already know we need lending, but we don't know necessarily all the little details already. But we will, in the future, as soon as the foundation is set, we will know what is missing, and we will know how version 2 will look like or should look like. Because we get feedback from the institutions that use these features, and then they say, okay, this and this is still missing, and then we know how to iterate and how to move forward in the future. And I think this will also
look at this. Permission DEX, Ripple Payments is behind. Ripple Payments wants permission DEX. Look at the lending protocol, Evernorth is behind. For me, this is at least a good thing to have, very powerful with a lot of capital behind entities that want to use that. Because if we say something like any other feature, there is no, like, it doesn't give, if someone who says like, I want to use it as like smart contracts or programmability would be every, like, put into all of these things, sort of, right? You cannot say, oh, I come here for programmability. It's always used with other things. So I think it might be also unfair to compare it with something else. But permission DEX and lending protocol, because you have like two very powerful entities behind it, Ripple and Evernorth. I have a lot of confidence in Ashish now, I have to say. Gained a lot of more confidence. Because I was critical, I have to say. I was critical. I was like, what is the plans? Like how, because it was like very vague. And I like how he spoke about like the XRP Ledger and what he wants to deliver. And now we will see what's going to come. And they did a call to action, like very tapped in. I like this really because it showed me that they're very close to what's going on. Because right now a lot of people talk about testing, and now they did a call to action. I was like, oh, okay, so they're aware.
Right, as they should. If they are, as they are part of the community, they should also be in the know. They should know what's going on. When
validator, Ashish, when validator.
Right. Pretty soon, I hope. We will see.
Yes, when? Because this is for another topic, folks. But yeah, we got to change. We got to remove a lot of people from the UNL and get like better people on. That's also something.
But better is subjective. So
better is subjective.
If you say better, many people
better in my point of view.
Yeah, that's true. But that's fine. Like that's also something we can do because it's decentralized. You can manage and change your UNL as you like. You don't have to necessarily follow the DUNL. You probably do because you want to be in agreement with every other node that is also in agreement with the DUNL. But you can, what a few people do, for example, they remove one or two validators from their UNL and add a few other validators just to mix up their UNL. So they are not 100% following the DUNL, which is what the XRPL allows you to do as a validator operator.
Yeah. And, a validator does also very simplistic things on the XRP Ledger intentionally. We don't want to give them like too much power because we want to make it as exchangeable as possible, right? Like whoever is best should be a validator. There should be no like any status to it because it needs to be exchangeable because of that, because if you make it becomes difficult.
True. Thank you, Ed, for this show, for co-hosting again. It
was fantastic.
Talking about all these amendments and about the community day, about David Schwartz and about all these new announcements. If you liked the show, Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and hope to see you all again next time, and see you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.